It's like an April Fool's Day prank.
So can we do it?
Why did we only do D2?
Back up
Well,
because
we're missing Topher, Treadwell.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Here comes Topher.
Yeah, I don't know, but it's so bad. It's so bad. It's so
see something and I'm good.
There's so many.
We'll give it
So, but
We'll start the meeting in 1 minute.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear.
God, I have so much open.
Little gap over there.
Little gap. Oh, Mitch always comes at the last minute. There he is.
Perfect.
On time.
Not like hard.
It'll be less of a gap.
Disregard.
Hi, how are you? I'm Linda Covert.
Oh, you've not met before?
No, there were so few of you here the last.
This is Topher.
Slice
Topher, this is
my
Linda.
Still wanted to be secretary.
Happens.
I don't care.
What's that?
You do not.
Scheduled it on Wednesday on purpose.
Taller.
Keep my mouth shut. Did you say we're having trouble finding?
I mean, you could. Bring my phone tomorrow.
Smells good.
Check it out.
Well, probably not me. I doubt that it's me. I'm
Like Linda.
Good evening and welcome to the Traverse City Planning Commission regular meeting on February 7th, 2023. This meeting is called to order. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Deturi,
Here.
Commissioner Martin,
Here.
Commissioner Covert,
Here.
Commissioner Treadwell,
here.
Commissioner Shaw,
Here.
Commissioner Hershey, here, Commissioner Hastings,
Here.
Commissioner Knapp and Tuller, and Commissioner Arnold are absent.
All right, thank you very much. Any announcements, Mr. Winter?
Nope, none at this time, thank you.
All right. Then we'll move to approval of the minutes for the last two Planning Commission meetings of the 4th of January, 2023, and the 18th of January, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to election of officers. I will do my best to fumble through this. There's a process, and it's. I hope that it works out. Let's see. We're looking for elections of 3 officers: the chairperson, the vice chairperson, and the secretary tonight. So I will open up nominations for just one at a time. Is that correct?
I would recommend that, yes.
Okay. Nominations for chairperson are now open.
I have a question. Is there any reason to think that the chair, the vice chair, and the secretary no longer want to hold their position?
I have no objection.
Okay,
with
then I want to nominate
3.
David Hassing for chairperson.
Support.
Second.
Okay. Any other nominations? Nominations are closed for chairperson, vice chairperson.
I'll
Oh,
move for,
Yeah, okay,
I'll move for Debbie.
okay.
Support?
Support. Any other nominations? Nominations closed for vice chairperson. Open for secretary.
Nominate Heather Shaw for secretary.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Cobert, it's moved, seconded. Any other nominations? Nominations closed. So for the nomination for chairperson, all those in favor of myself, David Hassing, staying as chairperson, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. All those for vice chairperson, Commissioner Hershey is the nominee. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries. For secretary, Commissioner Shaw, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Well done, everybody. All right, we will move on now to, let's see here. My apologies. Old business. We've got the review and discussion of the Planning Commission 2023 annual goals. For introduction, please, Mr. Winter.
Yeah, good evening, thank you. So last month at the study session, we discussed the Planning Commission goals from 2022 and those desired for 2023. Essentially, it remained the same because the Master Plan, Mobility Action Plan are still underway and not completed, so it was recognized that those two tasks needed to be finished. It was further decided that since we did not get the time to thoroughly address it, that the goal to expand housing opportunities should remain, as well as the riparian buffer zone ordinance. So we took the document from last year, we have changed the narrative to update it, reflecting current times and situations, added the graphic of where we are in the planning processes, as well as some of the objectives that need to be accomplished in order to address those goals. So I just want to reiterate, these are Planning Commission goals. There are some ideas thrown out there. No action is taken to make any changes today. This is simply accepting the goals to move forward with working on those through the year.
Okay, thank you very much. And so these have been reworded. I trust we all have read them. Are any other comments or concerns about how this is worded? And if not, we will entertain, well, any other comments? We will get to, there will be a time for public input after commissioners have their, after we have our discussion, if there is any. Will there, commissioners, any ideas, any thoughts?
Do you want a motion, or do you want to talk about it?
No.
If there's nothing to talk about, I will take a motion.
I have,
Commissioner Shaw.
in the
Just
riparian
wait just
buffer
a
zone
moment after the
ordinance
motion.
section, it says that staff will need time to take the draft, rewrite the ordinance. And then it says objectives: A, department head review and feedback; B, ordinance rewrite by staff; C, legal review; and then it comes to the planning commission. So there is no committee work here.
No, not at this time.
And so,
The committee has done their work, so now we need to take the staff and construct the legal language of it. So we have the input from the committee, but now we got to do the department work on it.
so you won't be reaching out to the watershed center, you won't be using, I don't know if any of you saw this came in right after our last meeting. It's all about coastal resiliency in Michigan. It talks about LIAA, which is a local organization, and how they've helped other Michigan coastal communities build ordinances, do public outreach. So it's not just the watershed that we have resources. This is really interesting, if you haven't read this. So, no?
Well, I never said that we wouldn't work with the Watershed Center. If you notice in the text there, it does say that there's been no community engagement, so that needs to happen. The Watershed Center was worked with on this back when there was a committee. So again, we have the meat, we got to put it together in the proper form. So that's where we are right now.
This also talks about the importance of creating a resiliency chapter in your master plan.
Yep, there is
Plans
one.
for that?
Yep, the leadership team has already reviewed it. It's called Sustainability, Resiliency, and Natural Systems. So you can see that online.
It's already online on the master plan website, is that?
I believe so, and if not, you can go to the leadership team meeting packets that are online, and it's all in there. Yep. And it was, if you recall, discussed at the joint meeting. If you were there, I don't know if you were, Heather, or not.
Well, I, for one, am a little disappointed that there will.
What's the purpose of the ad hoc at this point, since they've already done their work and we just have to work on the language and get it true to the attorney's liking?
Well, that maybe not everything was going to be able to get through that we wanted. This is going to cherry pick some things, protect the riparian as much as possible without encroaching on.
I'd like to remind everyone to please speak into the microphone in this
It
room.
will come back to the planning commission. won't
Yeah,
it?
we just need to put it together.
Yeah, they just have to put it together, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
pass legal.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes, and that's
then
where it
come
got
back.
stopped in the process
Oh,
previously.
that's where I remember it. I mean,
Yes.
is this from way back in the day?
Yes.
Okay, well, so then
sitting
it's
there.
done,
So-
and it was sitting on someone's desk. It went to legal, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay,
Yep.
great.
And she, as I stated
Hold
before,
the phone a second.
Yeah, yeah.
raised a number of concerns, and she definitely wants department heads to weigh in on it.
So then it'll come back to us.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Because it would be an amendment to the zoning ordinance, so we
Right.
have to go through the whole public hearing process and
Yeah.
everything. Yeah.
And it'll go to the city.
Then the city commission would make the final
Well,
adoption.
So there will be input.
If it goes
Of course.
smoothly along.
And again, as I've mentioned in the narrative there, like, no public engagement has occurred. That whole process still has to happen, led by the planning commission, because all these affected property owners haven't been contacted at all about this. And so.
They haven't been contacted formally. I mean, various property owners have engaged in the process at different times or been asked their opinion by members of the ad hoc.
Yeah, but there's
or
been no,
other people,
to your
but-
point, no formal activity where people can come and be heard and things like that. And that's a key part of this that needs to happen still.
There were people who used to come to the committee meetings, right?
They were
Public or
largely, I think, over
Well,
Zoom.
Mitch always came,
Yeah.
and the watershed came.
Okay. Probably Ann Rogers.
But since the lower Boardman plan has finished up their work, we haven't had any.
Okay.
No, the only community member that ever came was Mitch.
There would be a chance, depending on what the opinion is of the board when it comes to the board, if it needs further reworking, then it could go back to an ad hoc. But it all depends on how long it takes to get to that point and what it actually looks like when it does. Because
And it sounds like there would be opportunity then for LIAA to weigh in as well during the public engagement process.
Yeah,
And
I mean, there's all this, these grant opportunities for public engagement, public education, that, as far as I know, Lord. And
I've talked to
during
Matt
the
Cowell a
master
number of
plan-
times about this, and I'm aware of the program. We've had many conversations. And we've sent staff to the coastal resiliency planning down in Manistee. We had DPS go, we had utilities go, we had planning department go. So very aware of these.
Is it possible, so I don't know anything about this, but is it possible after we get this ordinance that grant money would be available to do public education of the community? Something?
Possibly. I mean, the public engagement doesn't have a lot of costs. Like, a lot of those programs are geared towards a lot of smaller communities that don't have staff, they don't have resources
Yeah.
and things like that. So, I mean, like, all this public engagement that we'll be going over in a few agenda items, we're just covering on our own.
Yeah.
And the Watershed Center does have
Oh, they do.
general brochures and pamphlets and website information about how to have a nice vegetated buffer on your own property. That brochure can be tailored to what our ordinance language looks like. And they have already expressed a willingness to shoulder part of that responsibility, and they would be willing to, on their own, pursue grants if, say, costs for printing and distribution of pamphlets is more than their limited budget for this. So,
well, and tonight we're not discussing this. We're just discussing the goal of discussing this.
Right. No, I was just looking at the steps and how they didn't include the planning commission at all.
Right. Oh, but they will.
Planning Commission review, step D.
She meant committee.
Right. Are you comfortable then with the wording of the riparian buffer portion of the
Yes.
goals?
I'll go along with it. But
Great.
I will talk about housing now.
Well, and so will I. I want to just in the room as we talk about we're going these goals for this year. We're talking about riparian buffer ordinances. We're talking about housing opportunities. These are goals for us to discuss sometime this year, hopefully. We've had it on last year's goals and the year before. So we're anxious to have that discussion, and it seems like members of the public are as well. But we're not talking about it tonight. So we're only talking about the goal of addressing housing opportunities in Traverse City. But with that, did you have something to add, Commissioner Shaw?
Yes, I am very concerned about, it's not actually used in the language here, but that this will be presented as an omnibus collection. The language here calls it a suite of regulatory changes. In other words, all of these are presented at the same time. I cannot support that. I think that the whole thing will drown in the most contentious item up there, which is A. I think maybe a couple of them could be combined, lot sizes. But not all of them at the same time. I think that you're missing opportunities to educate the public, to talk about these. By lumping them all together, it just creates this giant cloud of panic, and I can't support it. I can support most of these on their own, but not all as one presentation.
So far, well, the wording of it as an omnibus suite is,
Doesn't
I'm
actually say
assuming it's just an
omnibus, but
option at this
Yeah,
point?
and again, it's one that has been supported by many of the city commissioners as the approach that they'd like to take on it. Dave and I have talked about it as a possibility, but again, it doesn't have to go that way. We're establishing a goal, so the process will unfold as the planning commission wants it to unfold. Some of those items listed there may be removed and not included through the process. Some other ones that aren't listed may be identified and added. So those are all coming from an April 20th, I think, 2021 study session where went through every meeting that housing was talked about at the planning commission level for the last 2 years, compiled them all into one summary. And if you recall, we had that conversation of which ones are they willing to explore and which one are they not. So this list represents the study session outcomes from that meeting. So.
Commissioner Duterte?
Sure. Again, as many people have mentioned, these are just goals. They're suggested things to look at for the year. I don't see the harm in having 20 goals and only accomplishing half of them, or having 5 and accomplishing all 5. Like, I don't see the harm in, this is just our annual goals document. Like, I can't stress that enough. And then my only remark would be, like, we're never going to make an impact on housing if we're not moving multiple things. One of these points will never solve the housing crisis in Traverse City. Probably all of these points won't solve the housing crisis in Traverse City, but we can't just keep sitting, looking at them, saying, oh yeah, maybe we'll move one of these, maybe we'll not move one of these. I think I'm going to stop very quickly because otherwise I'm going to go down a rabbit hole, but it's not fair to the people that are trying to live here if we keep pushing it back, pushing it off, not approaching these goals as goals and having conversations with the public about it. Then they just remain these big scary things. ADUs become this big terrifying thing because we're not actually realistically approaching them and trying to come up with solutions to demystify them. Otherwise, they just remain these things that exist in our zoning that are scary. So I think this is the only way to move them forward, and I fully support all of this. I'd love to make a motion, but I know that more people want to speak, so I'll wait. No? Okay, great. I'll move that we accept the goals, the annual goals for 2023 as is.
Support.
Okay. Great. I will break then for public comment, as it seems some might want to speak at this time. If you would, please approach the microphone. You'll have, please state your name, your address, whether you're a Traverse City resident, and you'll have 5 minutes.
Mary Mills, Traverse City resident, 424 North Elmwood. This is in specifically to the housing opportunities. One of the key components of the master plan is transparency and inclusion of resident input. My understanding of a master plan is we take a look at where we are now and envision where we want to be. So I took a look at the webpage on the master plan, and I quote, "A master plan guides the future. It involves you. It is your opportunity to participate and have your voice heard regarding your desired future." To date, the master plan is in the plan development, the third of 5 stages. So I question why these proposed housing goals are trying to implement a vision that has not yet been defined. Do we have a plan that clearly outlines what the city and its residents want housing within our community to look like? The community engagement report indicated that our neighborhoods and preserving our natural resources ranked high in level of satisfaction and in preservation. Both our neighborhoods and natural resources will be directly impacted by these housing goals. And yet we haven't had a pop-up session or an engagement session that has met with our local neighborhoods to get their input. Increasing density was not even part of this survey. So I wonder, has there been any kind of an environmental impact study done on what increased densities will do to our neighborhoods? What they will do to our infrastructure? What they will do to our natural resources? Is there a common vision where we are going, or are we reacting to the housing crisis and not trusting the master plan process? If we move forward with these goals, what kind of ongoing engagement should we expect from our residents? The whole key to the master plan is to include our residents, engage them, and hear their vision. And yet we're bypassing their input, and we're looking to implement housing goals based on what vision? Our goal is to include residents in discussions surrounding the future of our community, so they are more likely to support ongoing projects and become aware of the challenges that the city faces, and also to become satisfied with their outcomes. And it's not only the residents, it's anybody who has any kind of decision-making into the future of Traverse City. When we all work from the same blueprint, our city is more likely to develop in a more strategic way. So I'm asking you, trust the master plan process and hold off on adopting these housing goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mills.
My name is Debbie Reggiani. I live at 422 North Elmwood, and I'm a resident. And as a resident and homeowner in the Slabtown neighborhood for the past 31 years, our family has enjoyed living in a quaint and family-oriented neighborhood, but I'm concerned about its future. I'm concerned that our neighborhood will be used as a guinea pig to hopefully provide more housing without regard to maintaining our values, protecting the character of our neighborhood, or the natural resources. And I'm also concerned with the progression of the development of goals for our city. First in my mind would be the master plan vision, based on resident input. Then the planning commission goals and objectives, developed from these. I see that 2 of the master plan meetings have been canceled, and I have only had the opportunity to give input 1 time. I also understand that the planning director, refused to meet with our Slabtown Association, claiming it was not fair to other citizens that do not have a formal association. So you can imagine my concern as I viewed a Planning Commission document titled Planning Commission Annual Goals. Based on what? No master plan vision, limited resident input? You say on this same document for 2023 that the master plan is consuming much of the staff and planning commission's time as if that's a bad thing. But isn't that your task? Isn't that how you should spend your time? Wasn't the timeline developed by this office? And shouldn't it be a fluid timeline, making sure that all residents in the city are heard? So what's the hurry? To check this off of your to-do list or to produce a valuable plan?
Thank you, Ms. Reggiani. Would you please spell your last name for
Yes.
the record?
It's Regian.
Thank you very much.
Seeing no other comments, I'll close public comment. We have a motion and support on the floor for the adopting our 2023 Planning Commission goals. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next is new business, consideration of the capital improvement plan for 2023, 2024 through 2028, 2029 for introduction and to set a public hearing for March 7, 2023. For introduction, please, Mr. Winter.
Yeah, so over the last approximately 3 months, the city staff has been meeting with administration, going over the capital improvements plan. As we know, is a plan. It's not a budget. It's a 6-year vision of projects that will increase or improve the infrastructure in the city, as well as assets and meaningful planning studies and design work. We've been going through this over the last couple of years, trying to improve it. For a long time, the CIP became a catch-all, so we had everything in there. We now take things that are funded out of the CIP, and we have a system program called Project Management where we track them. And we've set some criteria for what qualifies for a CIP. There needs to be certain cost thresholds. So for instance, things that are regularly scheduled in like the garage fund, like the purchase of new vehicles, those don't go into the CIP. The purchase of computers, those just go in the annual budget. Same thing with regular maintenance. So it's only the significant projects. So we've put that together. The goal of the CIP is that the most current year of the 6-year plan is used by the city commission and the city manager to create the upcoming year's fiscal budget. So we know that there's not always enough money to go around for everything. So this is a living document. So sometimes things have to be put back into the CIP, even though they're in the current year. Sometimes that happens because grants don't materialize or other priorities emerge that weren't anticipated. So we have that together. What we would like to do is have you continue to review it, to please send us, Laura in particular, email any questions that you may have on a particular project. We will try to get the correct staff to provide an answer. We will compile all those questions and answers for our February 22nd study session. If we can't get the question answered for you, then we will ask the appropriate staff to come to that meeting. But being respectful of their time and how busy they all are, if we can prevent that, then we will. But if we need them here, we will do that. And same thing for the 7th. So if they need to be here for the public hearing, we can arrange that as well. But we would like to just have adequate time to know that that is necessary. So any questions on that right now? If not, I'd love to show you what we're real excited about this year, and that's our interactive map.
It is
Give
so
you a
It was so
It is
cool.
so
Unbelievable.
We'll go ahead and work through that.
And it is great for.
We actually had an
citizen
internal facing beta one last year that we wanted to kind of play around with. And I want to give a lot of credit to our GIS coordinator, Jerry Swanson. He's been working with our department since the summer when we had our intern with Caitlin, with Laura, with myself to create this map. And we really think it's a great tool to help you visualize what is happening, where, and when. Because if you look at the Lucity report, guys, could you hold on for a second, please, so they can hear in here? Thank you. If you look at the Lucity report, it's just spreadsheet after spreadsheet after spreadsheet. It's a lot of technical information. And even to those of us that work in this document all the time, it doesn't make a lot of sense and it's not intuitive. So we're hoping this will be helpful. So if you come up under city departments, and you can also just search for it from the search bar, but coming down to, oops, wrong one, planning and zoning, down here at the bottom, we have our capital improvements project. So last week, we completely revamped this website and the content on it. So we give an overview of what the capital improvements plan is, what the criteria are for qualifying for projects, the Planning Commission approval per the Planning Enabling Act in the state of Michigan. And we left up there the last 6 year of CIPs. Now, each one has its own 6-year timeline, but sometimes projects move around and residents and citizens sometimes want to know, like, hey, I saw something in the past, where did it go, things like that. But right now, we have the draft ones. So we do have the big 173-page spreadsheet by program that you have in your packet, and then we have them broken down by the individual fund categories. Up here, we have a how to interpret the CIP report, which goes through that Lucity thing and tells you what each of those categories mean and things like that, and the different programs that we have and how they get added to the CIP again. But then again, new this year is our new CIP interactive map. So when you first go to the link, you get a splash pad that just has a disclaimer on how to contact Laura specifically for information on it. And up here we have the title. We have a little bit of information on how to use this map up there. And if needed, if you click this, it would take you back to that CIP homepage if you needed to get more information. So you can apply a number of different filters to this map. Right now, we have all 6 years of projects there. But you can click each individual fiscal year as proposed and see them individually. So you can see the different ones start to light up. Now you might notice there's a bunch of different colors. Those relate to the CIP programs. That's the categories that things are broken down to in that report that we mentioned. So that's what the different colors stand for. Now, one thing you might notice is down here, we have the different departments. So if you wanted to see what's planning and zoning working on, what's engineering working on, you can pick just that one department and it will go through there. And then you can filter by year and department. You can also search by individual projects. So if you saw one in the report and you were curious about it, you could type that in here, and it's all imported from our software. They wrote a code for it, so it brings it into here. So if you use the same words, you should be able to pull it up. And when you make a change in the CIP, it automatically makes a live change in the map. So that's kind of a cool connection that we've never had before, because our maps have always been static and took a lot of time. Another thing you might notice is when you go through, if you look at the list of departments, on some years, like if you click here, only Light and Power has anything programmed for 28, 29 at this point. So the departments that have projects available for each year will change depending on what they have put in there. So I want to kind of come through and show you how this works. They have been programmed, so when you click it, everything that you see in that Lucity or CIP report, all that information is provided here. So you can see the location, the extent of it. You can see what year it's kind of planned for in it. It gives you a description, a location, why it's needed, the impact, what fund group, and the estimated cost that it's going to take. Those costs kind of get adjusted each year because with inflation and rising costs of materials, we have to kind of work that in. So the other thing I want to point out is you come to some locations like the water plant. You'll notice up here, 1 through 15. So there's 15 different projects over the years at the water plant. So if you hit this, it'll toggle through each of them. And not all of them are from the water and sewer department or utilities. Some of them are Light and Power and stuff like that. And so that would be indicated on there. The other thing is if you come, let's say we look at the DDA. So here's the DDA office. Some things don't have a geographical location. So this first project is replacement of street trees. Well, that's throughout the whole entire DDA, so it's hard to geographically locate it. So that's why they put it where the office of the DDA is located. So if you're kind of wondering about some of those nuances, it was the best solution we were able to come up with so far. But you'll notice that there are 6 other available projects at this location, and they all, oh sorry, this one's Civic too. The other 4 all relate to the Hardy parking deck, which is where this polygon is located. So I think that might be about it. Some things are pretty small. You know, you got to really zoom in to see it. They don't have a big geographic footprint, but they are on there. The other thing is this is the plan. Right here we have some metrics. So in the next 6 years, all those projects add up to approximately just under $250 million. And that's 137 projects listed there. And you can see them broken down into how many fall into each of those program categories that we discussed. And you can toggle through them. But this might be interesting to say, okay, in 2026, what is Light and Power doing? They have $2.3 million worth of projects split up between 2 projects, and I can look at both of them right there. So we think this is a great tool for people. We think this is residents, citizens, appointed and elected officials, and hopefully we can improve transparency and what it is that we're trying to achieve through all our capital improvement projects throughout the year.
Yeah, well
It's
done.
amazing. Thank you to you and to Jerry. I've been at this a long time. I used to dread the CIP meetings. Oh, my God.
I want to know whose job is it to keep it? Because that's going to be a big job.
Well, that's what we've been doing for the last few months
Yeah.
in all those meetings, as staff is asked to go in, we go through, update all our stuff. Then we, as a planning department, go through and make sure that the projects that have been entered meet the criteria. On some, we flag and say, no, just budget for that in your annual budget for the department. And then we work with asset management, Chrissy Black, quite a bit over there. She kind of runs the Lucity software. She's the administrator of that program. And then we meet with the city manager. He kind of helps dictate the coordination of projects and stuff.
So if things move farther up in the CIP, that has to be.
Yeah, and the city manager works for the city commission, so
Yeah,
if he knows that's a priority of the city commission, then he's going to work to move that forward. Yeah. An example, Jefferson Madison street reconstruction, that was in the CIP probably 10 years now, but when 8th Street became a priority, other objects, because of funding, got shifted backwards. Yep. Oh, and there's one other tab that we're going to add to the homepage where you had the CIP report, the map, and how to interpret the report. We're going to have a flow chart too for that process. Our communication specialist is working on prettying it up so it matches the branding of the website. So that'll be added in the future.
Well, this is great. It's a lot of great work that has gone into the CIP.
So much great information.
I appreciate the filtering down so that we don't have to see that there's 30 computers being purchased for something and that that we're only looking at capital improvements, and the questions and answers. I'm feeling like we probably have better transparency than last year, or maybe it was the year before. Some questions were answered, but we didn't all hear the questions and the answers. So I appreciate that. And that staff time, or all of the department heads don't have to be here sitting through an entire meeting to answer a question on something where we could have just had the information on hand, which I appreciate on behalf of everyone that would have to do that. So.
I think about how hard Missy Lewick used to work on this thing, on an old computer system and trying to put it together. Wow, this is a huge improvement. Yeah.
Commissioner-
Sorry, it's nice because we have the CIP program, which is coded to the map, which is also coded to our project management. So once something does get funded, we just click a button, it comes off CIP, all that information migrates to the project management site, and then the city manager and everyone can keep track, like, all right, is it out for RFP? Has it been awarded? Is it under construction? Is it closed out? So it's kind of helping us all.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Commissioner Martin, did you have something?
When I was looking through this, Sean, I didn't see where the TART projects were on here. Didn't show up as one of the options there on the left side. So are they hiding under a different box or a different category?
It's on the map here. I don't know if it's under planning.
Just couldn't identify it. I was looking for it. I was just curious why I couldn't find
It was
it.
23, 24. So it's right here.
Well, it's the same color as the background.
Yeah.
Okay. That's why I couldn't find it. Okay.
Yeah, and so, again, it is a weird color why it's showing up that way. Walkways are blue, so it should be blue, and that's good to note because we can, okay, when you zoom in
it's so
closer,
thin.
you see the blue. I think it's so thin that you're seeing the gray outline at that extent.
Got it.
So, yeah, so when you click on this, so that's that TART extension, so all of that.
Okay. Got it. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and again, this is new, so if you notice errors or things aren't working right, let us know. We'll get with Jerry and we'll get it corrected, because there's a lot of projects that we've tried to go through and catch them all, but until you're really using it, and sometimes your eyes get a little lazy when you look at the same thing over and over again.
Do we need a motion for the public hearing?
Yes, you will need a motion to set the public hearing.
If there's no other comments, we will entertain a motion.
I would move that the draft capital improvement plan for fiscal years 2023-24 through 2028-29 be introduced and set for public hearing on March 7th, 2023.
Support.
Great, we have motion and support. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries. Great, thank you. Next order of business is the discussion on upcoming planning efforts and community engagement. There was an error in our packet. We are not talking about any subcommittee of the mobility action thing, but we are working on discussion on upcoming planning efforts and community engagement. There were 2 items in that section B, and only the second one is official. The other was just sort of clicked and added by accident.
Yeah, so the Tactical Urbanism Subcommittee is not part of the discussion today. So that was from a subcommittee of the Mobility Action Plan back in December, and when we were building the agenda, we must have just clicked that as well. And they're sorted, the attachments, by alphabet subject, so both beginning with discussion. I'm sure that's where we had the error. So this was put in there because last month we mentioned that we were working with our consultant teams to come up with the spring community engagement activities, and that we try to get something in writing to you. Some of this is a little fluid. As you notice, there's some dates, there's rather locations and stuff that are to be determined. I think what we would like to do is create like a Google Doc spreadsheet for you, so we can put this all in, you can have access to it, and so we can then plug in some of that information and keep referring to it. But the dates are largely set now, so I'd like to go through them. You know, we have 3 main projects that we're working on this spring. We're working on the master plan, obviously, the mobility action plan, and the TART Trail Improvement and Extension Project. And I also included in here your PC meetings as well as the joint ones. So we have today's meeting where we're working on the CIP to set the public hearing. For the TART Trail expansion, February 15th is when we start our community engagement on that for the design process. We will be conducting stakeholder interviews that day, and we will be having a virtual public engagement meeting from 5:30 to 7:30. We're offering that because we've heard through the other planning exercises that people like the option of virtual. And we also know this time of year, a lot of people are in warmer, sunnier climates. But the next day, we will be doing more stakeholder interviews for that project and 2 in-person public engagement sessions. So the first one is going to be from 3 to 4:30. That's next week in the training room. And that's going to be focused on the portion of the trail from Division Street to Peninsula Drive at the Blue Goat. So what we're calling the downtown segment. And that part, we had a little more meat on the bone because we had a conceptual design. The second meeting will be that same night, 6 to 7:30 in the training room as well. And that's going to be focusing on the Peninsula Drive portion. Now, we're a little further ahead with the downtown segment because we did have the conceptual plan. If you recall from the plan, once we got to Peninsula, all we had was like a dashed line along the route. We don't know what facility type. We haven't talked with the residents yet. So we might need an additional meeting with that segment just because we got to start at a high level about, all right, what are the values? What are we trying to achieve? What's the connectivity? What are your concerns and desires? So that one will be at 6 to 7:30. Also on the 16th at 3:30, we'll be having our master plan leadership team. They will be looking at the chapter on housing. On February 21st, again, another master plan activity. We are doing the title has changed. It's Planning for Tourism Workshop. So that is going to have a virtual version from 2 to 3:30 that day. And then we'll be having a in-person one from 6 to 7:30 at the McGuire Room at the Traverse Area District Library. So the consultants that we're working with, they have some ideas, but what they want to do is really step back and listen to the community. You know, like what are your concerns about tourism? What's the value about tourism? You know, let's have that conversation. It's a huge part of our economy, but it's also a huge impact on our community. So, you know, we're going to take a chance to look at that. So February 22nd, Mobility Action Plan Leadership Team regularly scheduled that fourth Wednesday of the month. We also have our PC study session that day. Note that that's a Wednesday, not a Tuesday because of President's Day. So it's bumped to Wednesday that week. March 2nd, again, Master Plan Leadership Team at 3:30. We've been having both of those leadership teams meet primarily in the committee room, just depending on availability, but that's generally where we try to meet them. March 7th, we'll have our public hearing on the Planning Commission. The following week, on Monday, March 13th, is a joint Planning Commission, City Commission meeting where they'll be working or discussing all 3 of the projects. So they'll have some activities for everyone, get them all in the same room. March 15th, and 16th, we're doing the next round of community engagement for the Tart Trail Improvement and Expansion Project. So similar format as the month of February. We'll do our stakeholder interviews during the day. On the 15th, we'll do the virtual option from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. The next day, we will continue with our stakeholder interviews. And again, from 3 to 4:30, we will be holding a in-person community engagement for the downtown segment. And then 6 to 7:30 will be for the peninsula segment. Those locations have not been identified yet. We didn't have a lot of lead time this time, which is why we had the training room. We were trying to find locations closer to the project area. So the peninsula one will likely try to hold it at TC Central or NMC, and we'll try to find a venue, potentially the Opera House for the downtown segment. So,
We can't just have a meeting at the Blue Goat?
no, too small. Also on the 15th, we will be having our open house for the Mobility Action Plan. So they will be unveiling the draft network map that Tool Design Group has been working on, summarizing the community, or providing information on the community engagement report from the fall. They'll also be doing a street segment building activity and a couple other things. So that location we're still working on. It'll be interesting. I got to be at like 3 different meetings at the same time that day, but we'll figure out how to make that happen. So the 21st of March will be our regularly scheduled Planning Commission study session. The next day, again, Mobility Action Plan leadership team. Then early April, we are going to do our public engagement for the master plan, our residential neighborhood listening session. So I'll address that because it came up in a public comment earlier. And this is something that the staff and team has decided quite a bit. There's an equity issue in our minds because not every residential community has a neighborhood association. So when you focus just on the neighborhood association, many voices aren't heard. But we're going to go to each neighborhood and listen. Some cases, they may be small, and we may combine them together. But we're certainly interested in hearing from the residents and the neighbors. I know in some neighborhoods, people won't go if it's at the association because of how political they've become and things like that. That's not everyone, but we don't want that kind of distraction. We just want to have listening sessions, so we will go to residential areas and we will listen to residents. And we will also have a virtual option, so if you can't make it, because we're going to kind of be blitzing around the city and setting up throughout the day or two to kind of make that happen. If that is not convenient with your schedule, we will have a virtual option where you can go in and pick where you live and then kind of answer the same questions that we'd be going through in the in-person meetings. So beginning of April, again, we have our PC meeting. April 6th, we have next leadership team. April 18th, we'll do our study session. Then beginning mid-April for all 3 projects, we're going to start those pop-up events that we did in the fall again, weather permitting. So that's where we'll probably lean on the members of the Planning Commission, the leadership teams to help volunteer like you did last time to go around. And a lot of that is just going to be making people aware of the upcoming activities. We will have the QR codes where they can go to the websites and sign up for things. They can see where the various virtual options are to participate. If they've missed them and that they're still live, they can go on. So then April 25th, we are going to be doing a scenario planning workshop for the master plan. Since the March 15th open house will unveil the network map, components of that network map for circulation and mobility will be part of the scenario planning exercise. And right now that is scheduled for the new Alluvion and Common Grounds, which if you haven't had the chance, it's a very nice facility, and we're grateful that they're allowing us to use that place here in the community. And there will be earlier that day a virtual version. I think it's at 2:30. I'll have to go back and check on that. Back at April 26th is when we have our leadership team. Right now, we're tentatively, for the master plan, April 26th and 27th, tentatively scheduled for more community engagement for the Tart Trail. And that would be the format where the first day we have virtual, the second day we have the in-person. I say tentative because if after the first few rounds we're hearing the same thing, it's going to kind of reinforce that we're getting dialed in and it may not be necessary. Of course, for Peninsula, that segment, we're a little bit further behind in the conceptual design, so it may be. And if we have to meet again in May, we'll do that as well. So then we get into just, again, Planning Commission, Master Plan Leadership Team. May 6th is when we plan to distribute a survey, because at that point, we're kind of winding down on that next round of community engagement. We want to have that follow-up opportunity like we did last time. We'll have our regular meeting here on May 16th. Please note, May 22nd is another special joint meeting between the Planning Commission and the City Commission, hopefully summarizing and reporting back everything that's happened through this time period. And then we just kind of wrap up the month of May with our regular study session for the Planning Commission, and then our mobility action plan leadership team. So it's quite a bit. I mean, it's about 30 additional evening meetings that we'll be doing outside of City Commission and Joint Planning Commission, but we're ready for it.
Can I ask what the expectations of planning commissioners are? Are we expected to attend all of these?
As many as possible, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep, because you'll be voting on a lot of these plans. You'll be adopting the mobility plan and the master plan and stuff. Yep. So we realize it's a lot, but got to get through it. And
These meetings, the idea of a quorum, it doesn't matter because they're all going to be posted as public meetings anyway?
so what we do is we just put a notice that it's potential that a quorum may be present at these, but no business will be discussed with the Planning Commission. No decision. So we checked with the clerk's office for the last open house, and that's what we
But if they are opportunities to receive public input and the public will be there, then the more planning commissioners that are there and hearing that public input, the less needs to be relayed at subsequent planning commission meetings.
Yeah, and I think that's what's so valuable about your attendance at these, because, you know, the nature of public meetings isn't dialogue. So the public can watch the boards do their business. These are the chance when you get to talk with the residents and the citizens, stuff like that. And it is nice and insightful. It's a much more informal setting than what we have here. So it's a really great opportunity for organic dialogue going, listening to what they're saying.
Will city commissioners be given the same list?
Yep. What I'll probably do is send them the same link, because there's already been some changes since this packet went out on Thursday, the link to the spreadsheet, so that they can see that as well.
In the virtual meetings, is used as a chat or to give their comments, or are they, how does that going to work?
They'll probably have a chat option, you know, like you can ask your question in the chat or raise your hand. I was on
Okay.
a 300-person
Yeah.
meeting last
can
week,
get
and it
familiar.
worked pretty fine.
Yeah.
But they'll probably use this program called Mentimeter. I think Commissioner Shaw, you might have remembered if you went to the housing one where they talked at the MAP conference or Treadwell, where you scan the QR code on the phone, and then they pose a question, and then you answer it on your phone, and it populates results in live time, real time, on the screen. So they said they'd probably be using some of that for some of the, and then they save that data.
Right.
So yeah,
Great.
this is where you'll find us in the next 4 months primarily.
Indeed, we have the schedule now, so that's full. Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, we will, if there's no other comments to that, we'll move on to reports. The Board of Zoning Appeals has not met,
We will meet next week.
but we will meet next week. Yes, indeed. Don't know what that is yet. From the City Commission, any report?
Well, we had a meeting last night that went pretty smoothly, actually, very
45
quickly. Yes. Except for a closed session that went for about an hour, but
Yeah. I think the only thing that affects the planning commission was the change that puts us in compliance with the Zoning Enabling Act, where when a city commissioner is placed on the planning commission, they are to stay for their term of being a city commissioner. They can decide to quit, but no one can force them off during that time.
because otherwise there was a discrepancy between when the terms for planning commission were versus the terms for city commission that could cause there to be overlaps of indeterminate length where it was unclear whether somebody would be continuing on, you'd have to appoint a new person to fill that gap, or it would just be vacant.
We weren't in compliance on that, so that has been changed.
Okay.
And it also helps too, I mean, there's a lot of learning that goes into it, and to have a revolving door in that position every year can be a little underserving to the community. Plus, we'd like to invest in the training, the conferences, the workshops, and put that knowledge to use.
I agree.
Great. Master plan leadership team,
Yeah, we bumped our meeting at the beginning of February to mid-February because they're drafting the housing chapter. It's a lot of text, and they have some graphics that they're creating, and they wanted more time because it's easier to understand. So that's been moved to February 16th. So really nothing since the last time we met. We didn't meet over Christmas break. Yeah, or holiday break, so, yep.
okay, we'll look forward to that.
Mhm.
And then the planning department.
Well, I'll just. back
Oh,
up.
mobility action,
Yeah, mobility
sorry.
action plan. We did meet about a week ago on the fourth Wednesday. We went through a recap of the exercises they did at the joint meeting where they broke everyone into groups, if you recall, and we talked about streets, like what's the branding, things like that, and the different values. So they reported back to the leadership team on that. We also had a subcommittee in December created that met twice to identify potential tactical urbanism or demonstration projects. So as we talk about this network map and the different types of facilities that could be incorporated, we wanted to come up with some that we can demonstrate. An example of when that's happened before is if you were around a number of years ago, they did the Lot O pop-up park, turned that into a little park, and it was temporary, but showed you what could be. That's the idea, the essence of what we're trying to do here. And then that can inform the public of what is possible. So that subcommittee met twice. They identified about 12 projects. The executive team worked with the consultants. We whittled that down to about 7. Some we realized were just way too cost prohibitive, or there wasn't a temporary solution to it. Like one of them was the intersection at Maple and 14th Street. I mean, it's just a mixing bowl. You know, it's almost dangerous to do something temporary there. It just really needs to be designed. So we met, and through a process of kind of voting and discussing, identified 4 that now staff and consultants are going to start working on to figure out how to implement. So one of them, and I'm going off memory here, is 14th Street has a left turn lane. For most of it, there's nowhere to turn left, like between Veterans and Pine, so maybe showing some sort of temporary median to make it more of a boulevard feel. The other one is at 8th Street near Garfield, where the new Common Grounds in Oakwood is. In the right-of-way, we have those kind of wonky pull-offs right there, maybe making that a temporary plaza space, more of a place-making. One is going to be a mid-block crossing in Old Town on Union Street. And other one, might have been, Franklin Street between 8th and the railroad tracks. It's like if you're on the trail and you cross the tracks, all of a sudden you're dumped out into what feels like no man's land. Trying to make that more of a inviting connection to the cycle tracks on 8th Street, maybe showing what a separated protected bike lane on that short segment could look like. All of these have hurdles, though. You know, the business owners at 8th Street have to be supportive of what we're trying to do. The temporary bike lane can be challenging because there's a tire shop there and they park on the other side. So we gotta work through these things. But the goal is to have them implemented around May 15th before the real busy summer season so that we can start to see how people interact with those spaces. So that's where we're at with that.
Great. Okay, and then planning? Aside from what we just saw, the schedule?
Yeah, it's been quite a bit. Not a whole lot. The City Commission has another pilot application for affordable housing project, so that'll be coming to them shortly. Other than that, we've just been kind of working on reports, planning.
Yeah. Great. All right. All right, well, then we'll move on now to public comment. If anyone from the public has anything to say, please step to the mic. Same rules apply as previous.
But it
Commissioner
can't be
Duterte?
about the same thing that they've already made public comment about. Isn't there a clause about that?
I think
Yeah,
this is just
so.
general public comment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Closing
Yeah,
public comment.
off topic.
It could even be on something not on the agenda.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Seeing none, I will close public comment. And then commissioners, any other thoughts or considerations of the day? shout-outs of the city in general?
I don't have a shout out. I have a disappointment, actually. Somebody alerted me to the relatively new construction on Gillis Street, and they were saying, oh, it's going to be all short-term rentals. And I said, that can't be, because we made it so that C1 and C2 neighborhoods can only have 25% short-term rentals. And after talking with Dave Weston and also Russ, that block is not C1 or C2. It is D3. And when we made those changes, and I'm specifically talking to Heather and David, I think the rest, and Anna, were on the commission at that time.
I was over there.
Yeah, you were always in the audience. We changed C1, C2, and D2, and not D1 and D3. And so that's how that slipped by, so that was too bad. But there is something else that got built on A Street that did have to comply with the new ordinance. And I can't remember what it is. Which one is
It's,
it? Or is it the white one by the Dairy Queen, the Dairy
Dairy Lodge.
Lodge?
Dairy Lodge? Is there one there? Anyway,
Yes.
it worked. It did work in one or two builds, but it didn't work on that street. So for those of you who worked so hard on that, just know that Gillis Street for me is a disappointment, but it has worked in a few other cases.
And I'll just add, that's a great example of, that's not listed on the housing things, but that's something that could be included as part of that discussion.
So I just thought about that, and should I have said that?
No, because again, that was just a list. It's a starting point. It's not.
And it's
end
our
all,
list
be
of-
all. It's not a guarantee, it's just.
It's
some
our list
ideas.
of goals. It's not
Yeah.
saying that these are exactly what will be accomplished in this framework.
Options we're going to.
Add or
Yeah,
subtract?
I want everyone to gird their loins because I want to attack short-term rentals again during my short tenure here, so.
Definitely,
Well,
definitely.
And if any of you had the chance to look at the DDA's Moving Downtown Forward strategic plan, that was one thing the consultant really called out is like, you have way too many short-term rentals for a community your size. So some flags have been raised, and it's
Yeah.
worth having the conversation again.
Yeah, so I'd love to
And
see that added.
It could be
Same.
brought into our planning discussions about the geographic distribution of short-term rentals and whether we want to actually increase lodging capacity in certain parts of town to essentially segregate that use away from other residential uses.
Which is what they did in Asheville.
Mm-hmm.
All
Anyway,
right, all right. To be continued on that.
I can say something nice. I love Common Grounds.
Yes.
And I loved the Comedy Fest. It was fabulous.
It was
It
very.
was great.
Great.
It was great. DDA, kudos to DDA. They really pulled it off. It was fabulous. Really
I mean, it was like, if you were downtown on Saturday, like every parking lot was full.
It was
there
so
people
much fun to
everywhere.
be
We're talking,
downtown
like,
Saturday.
February.
It was amazing.
It was great on Thursday night.
Yeah,
Was it?
it was just wonderful.
Great.
Common Grounds is beautiful.
It is.
It's
It's
so
coming
good.
along, yeah.
I have an event this week at the Alluvion that I am doing a talk back for, and I'm very
be there the
excited.
night?
I am gonna be there.
Well, that's a good plug.
Yeah,
You should
so
make a plug.
P45 is having, oh, great. I'm going to see everybody there. P45 is having
A play reading.
a play reading of a play called The Inheritance. It's the second part of a reading series. The first part was last year. I was involved in that as well. For those that don't know, I'm the president of Up North Pride, and so I will be involved in the talk back on Thursday at that event at the Alluvion. So it gets you in.
And also, if you missed part one, there's going to be a little synopsis to catch you up. It is a very moving, amazing play. And I want to add that on February 23rd is the next play reading called The Children. It is also a Pulitzer Prize finalist play that you would not know if Parallel 45 didn't bring it here. It is about climate change. So it is funny in parts, very, very moving in other parts. I happen to be in it. So if you want to come see me be in it, I would love to have you come. And these play readings are free to the public with a suggested donation. And they're all held at the Alluvion. And there'll be 2 more in March.
Great. Great. Well, we'll look forward to that. All right. If there's nothing else, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
Well, no one says
That was so much faster than I thought it was gonna be. It's like, wow.
I wouldn't say it's the shortest
I will
meeting
be
ever. I
sending
had
you,
a
I'm looking at, I am
BZA
going away.
meeting that clocked in under 5 minutes.
That's fine. I mean,
We actually had a planning commission meeting that was about 30.
it's a
But
lot.
I
don't
will
expect
go to
everyone to be
everything else I
every
can.
night.
You cancel them.
It's
so
available. I think there's a lot of value
That's not
to
gonna be bad.
Oh, yeah, I think Mark's all really fascinating sounding. I'm very excited about it all.